Gavin, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Michael.
Do you really believe that? Because that seems inordinately alarmist to me, but that's just me.
Well, I'd like to think you're right, but I look back at the occupation of Parliament grounds, you remember a couple of years ago.
Yep.
And some of the placards that I saw there were straight out of the Trump anti-media playbook. Media treason, which was one of his favourite tropes. Enemy of the people, another one, appearing there. And I really do believe that because, the digital media have sort of done away with national boundaries for many people. They see happenings on social media, and they really don't know or particularly care, I think, where it's coming from, and that tends to, I believe, influence their own broader worldview, and that's where the danger lies. Now, I heard you mentioning before that journalists have never enjoyed total trust any more than politicians have. And that's true. But I do believe that COVID and the first Trump term, which had an unfortunate convergence in a way, tapped into part of our psyche that reacts to both anxiety and also the ability to hammer somebody. I think we like to hammer people, and since COVID and since Trump did away with so many of the conventions of politics and I think of civic life, the boundaries changed, and the ability to stridently criticize was commensurately amplified. And I believe that another Trump term will see that happen again, and it may well be back this time, particularly if the Republicans take the House as well as the Senate, by law change that supports his assault on the media.
Can I just take you a couple of things you've just said there? You've talked about anxiety and hammering people. I would have thought that one of the major contributors to anxiety in this country, by the way in which the New Zealand media report news and their sensationalist take upon so much news, comes from, yourselves, the New Zealand news media, that the anxiety is induced as much by you as, if you like, a simple reporting technique, because you teach sensationalism in your journalism schools. The second aspect I'd also say, in terms of hammering people, Gavin, as somebody who's been at the end of that hammer, can I say the gotcha journalism of New Zealand also, I would have thought, contributes to hammering people. I don't think the New Zealand media come to this particular discussion with clean hands, do they?
Oh, absolutely not. No. Look, since 2020, since the beginning of the COVID pandemic, I've been each day logging the lead headlines in each of the 5 metropolitan papers. So I've got a longitudinal look, if you like, at anxiety. And I can tell you that so many of those headlines relate to crime or serious injury and are anxiety heightening. So yes, there is no doubt that the media themselves, and I'm out of it now, Michael. I don't contribute to it. I simply observe it. But so by all means, hold me accountable for the things I did, but I'm not accountable for what they're doing now.
But you don't think you don't think that kind of journalist reporting and the kind of attack journalism also of individuals, which was certainly around, not just since COVID, that was around surely in the decades prior.
Yes, I think holding people to account certainly was. And
it was a bit more than that, though, doesn't it? There was almost the ritual humiliation, and I'm not just talking about of political or public figures, but of people in general who sort of offended the sort of common decency self-ascribed of the media too.
I don't recall in my own time deliberately setting out to demean or belittle anybody groundlessly simply because we could. But nonetheless, look, I think that, we can take that around in circles forever. I think that the fact remains that the media have never been perfect, and I accept that. They've always had their faults, but I think that now, particularly in a digital environment where they are, really hungering for clicks all the time, that it's reached a level of intensity that we hadn't seen before.
So you're saying that the media are playing the same game as Google and Facebook now, which is, I want you to click on me because that's how I get viewership or readership or listenership, and therefore I can sell those particular viewers or listeners or readers to advertisers.
Yeah, it's no different to broadcasters' search for ratings either. Everybody is now in the search for eyeballs and ears. And because we now have such a multiplicity of information sources, the ability to capture those eyes and ears becomes harder. So you look for more emotive ways of doing it. And I think that emotion now plays a huge role in that process.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And unfortunately, that's what they're taught at journalism schools these days too, though, to be emotive, get that hook,
I agree. Yeah.
Listen, going just on that though, I'm interested in one of the things that's become evident from me coming back into just doing this role for the last 2.5 years, Gavin, has been reporter bias in this country. Massey University reporting a couple of years ago on the bias of reporters, self-described a bias, and showing that most newsrooms in this country possess a liberal or a very significant political left view. And as you infuse that with more journalism incorporating opinion in its news stories, there was a perception that the New Zealand media is impossibly liberal left biased in its presentation of fact and news. What's your commentary on that?
Well, I mean, I think that probably in the eyes and ears of the beholder, there will be people who think that the media are terribly right-wing because they happen to be left of wherever the media sit. So it's a matter of perception, but that's really, it's not a matter of where on the spectrum they sit. It's the fact that they have allowed themselves, through the infusion of opinion into their news stories, to provide a basis by which people can say, this is where they sit on the spectrum because that's what their opinion is. Now, in days gone by where we separated news and opinion, or fact and comment, that sort of catch-22, I suppose it is, didn't really exist to the same extent. Sure, media was still accused of being left, right, or whatever, but that tended to be on the basis of their editorial comment rather than their news columns. But now, because we've conflated the two, it's become so easy, so damned easy for people to say they are left or they are right or they're up a tree or they're down a hole, simply because we've allowed opinion not only to become part of news stories, but sometimes to supplant the news itself. In other words, what the opinion of the journalist is takes on greater importance than the facts themselves. And I think that that's a very dangerous path to go down.
Well, and that's the part, and so you and I agree on that, okay, so we've come to an agreement on that issue. But at that point, the media become individually, and in some media outlets institutionally, they become political players at that point. They've entered the political game as players. They've stopped being observers, relaying information to the public. They've become activists in the political game. At that point, aren't they fair game, Gavin?
They are more, I think they're more open to criticism. I wouldn't use the term fair game simply because of the strident nature of criticism these days. Nobody deserves to be told they're going to be raped at the end of their shift, which happened during the occupation of Parliament. A female reporter was told that by one.
Yeah, but that's one. You can't condemn an entire group of people through the activity of one individual.
No. Let me finish. I agree that they are open to criticism on that. I wouldn't use the term fair game, that's all, because it's too open a term. But yes, they should be called to account for, I think, that conflation that confuses the role of the reporter and the commentator. And because they've allowed that to come together, they really do score an own goal.